A late-night connection, Rebecca Hayes wiped the paint from her fingers as she settled into her worn leather couch in her Brooklyn studio apartment. The city hummed outside her window, a constant reminder that even at midnight, New York never truly slept. She had spent the evening working on a personal art project, something that fed her soul in ways her corporate design job never could. Her phone buzzed with a notification from Art Connect, the creative networking platform she had joined 3 weeks ago. She had been hesitant at first, but her best friend Jamie had convinced her that meeting like-minded creatives could help expand her portfolio and maybe even lead to freelance opportunities. The message was from someone named Mike Wilson. His profile showed a man in his early 30s with warm brown eyes and a genuine smile, photographed against the backdrop of the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset. His bio described him as a photography enthusiast and small business consultant who loved exploring hidden corners of the city. "Your gallery is incredible," his message read. "That piece you did of the subway musician playing to an empty platform? It captured something so lonely, yet beautiful. You have a gift for finding emotion in ordinary moments." Rebecca felt her heart skip. Most messages she received on the platform were generic or clearly copy-pasted, but this felt different. This person had actually looked at her work and understood what she was trying to express. "Thank you so much," she typed back. "That means more than you know. I spend so much time doing corporate designs that I forget sometimes why I fell in love with art in the first place." The Monday morning arrived with its usual brutality. Rebecca rushed through the gleaming lobby of Montgomery Digital, a tech empire housed in one of Manhattan's most impressive skyscrapers. She had been working as a senior graphic designer for the company for 2 years, and while the pay was excellent, the environment was cold and demanding. Daniel Montgomery, the company's 34-year-old CEO, was a legend in the tech world. He had built his billion-dollar empire from a small startup, revolutionizing digital marketing platforms. The business magazines called him a genius. His employees called him distant and impossible to please. Rebecca had only interacted with him directly 3 times, which encountered leaving her feeling small and inadequate. He never smiled, never showed any warmth, and his critiques of design work were delivered with surgical precision that left no room for confidence. "Rebecca, conference room B in 10 minutes, her supervisor Paula announced. "Montgomery wants to review the campaign concepts for the Peterson account." Rebecca's stomach dropped. She had worked late every night last week perfecting those designs, but presenting to Daniel Montgomery felt like facing a firing squad. She gathered her materials and headed to the conference room, her hands slightly trembling. 2 worlds colliding, Daniel Montgomery sat at the head of the glass conference table, his custom-tailored navy suit and perfectly styled dark hair creating an image of untouchable success. He didn't look up when Rebecca entered, his attention fixed on his tablet. The presentation lasted 40 minutes. Rebecca explained each concept, the strategic thinking behind every color choice and layout decision. Daniel remained expressionless throughout, occasionally making notes but never offering feedback or encouragement. "The third concept," he finally said, his voice measured and professional. "It's safe. Too safe. The client hired us for innovation, not predictability. I want to see something that takes a risk." Rebecca felt her face flush. "I can have a new version by Wednesday." "Tomorrow," Daniel corrected, still not meeting her eyes. "The pitch is Friday." She left the conference room. Rebecca felt the familiar weight of inadequacy settling on her shoulders. This was why she had created her Art Connect profile. She needed somewhere she could be appreciated for her creativity, not just critiqued for not being bold enough. Evening conversations that evening. Rebecca found herself messaging back and forth with Mike Wilson for 3 hours. They talked about everything from their favorite museums to the best pizza places in the city. He asked thoughtful questions about her art, and when she mentioned having a difficult day at work, he was sympathetic without prying. "My boss is impossible to please," Rebecca typed, sitting cross-legged on her couch with a glass of wine. "I pour my heart into projects, and he just tears them apart without seeing any of the thought that went into them." "Some people have a hard time expressing appreciation," Mike responded, "especially people in positions of power. They forget that encouragement matters just as much as critique." I bet your work is amazing and he just doesn't know how to say it. Rebecca smiled at her screen. How was this stranger able to make her feel better in seconds when her actual boss made her feel worthless? What about you? She asked. What's your work like? Complicated, Mike wrote. I have a lot of responsibility, and sometimes I feel trapped by expectations. People see a version of me that's not really who I am inside. That's part of why I joined this platform. I wanted to connect with people who might see the real me. Over the next 2 weeks, Rebecca and Mike's conversations became the highlight of her days. They would message during lunch breaks, share photos of interesting things they saw around the city, and have long phone calls in the evenings. His voice was warm and engaging. He had a way of making her laugh that felt effortless. The accidental discovery Rebecca was working late at the office on a Thursday evening, revising designs based on Daniel's latest round of feedback. The floor was mostly empty. Just a few dedicated employees scattered throughout the open workspace. She needed coffee and headed to the executive break room, which was usually empty at this hour. As she approached, she heard a voice on the phone that made her freeze. I know, the voice said with a warmth she had never heard before. That gallery opening sounds perfect. I'd love to go. You know how much I appreciate street photography? Rebecca recognized that voice. It was impossible, but she recognized it. She peeked around the corner and saw Daniel Montgomery leaning against the counter. His tie loosened, and his usually severe expression relaxed into something almost happy. Her mind raced. Daniel Montgomery, interested in street photography. She had never heard him discuss anything personal at work. He was always strictly business, never revealing anything about his life outside these walls. I should go, he said into the phone. Still at the office? Yeah, I know I work too much. You sound like my therapist. He laughed, an actual genuine laugh that Rebecca had never heard before. Then he hung up, and his face transformed back into the serious, composed mask he always wore at work. He straightened his tie, grabbed his coffee, and walked right past her without acknowledging her presence. Rebecca stood frozen in the hallway. Something about that laugh, that warmth in his voice. It reminded her of something, someone, but that was impossible, wasn't it? Growing suspicions the next day, Rebecca decided to test a theory. During her lunch break, she called Mike while sitting in the plaza outside Montgomery Digital's building. They talked about weekend plans, and she casually mentioned wanting to visit the new contemporary art museum in Chelsea. I've been wanting to check that out too, Mike said. Though with my work schedule, it's hard to find time. Maybe we could go together sometime? I'd love that, Rebecca replied, watching the building's entrance. What kind of work keeps you so busy anyway? You've never really told me? It's boring corporate stuff, Mike deflected. I'd rather talk about your art. Did you finish that piece you were working on? Later that afternoon, Rebecca had another meeting with Daniel. As she presented her revised concepts, she noticed something she had never paid attention to before. When he was deep in thought, he had a habit of running his hand through his hair in a specific way, disrupting its perfect styling for just a moment. She had seen that gesture before. Mike had done it during their video call last week, when he was thinking about how to respond to a question about his favorite photographer. Rebecca's heart started racing. She began paying closer attention to small details. The way Daniel held his coffee cup. The slight pause he took before answering difficult questions. The fact that he mentioned being busy on the exact evenings when had canceled their phone calls due to work obligations. The night everything changed, 2 weeks later. Rebecca was working late again when her phone buzzed with a message from Mike. Working late again. Sometimes I feel like I'm two different people. The person everyone expects me to be, and the person I actually am. Does that make sense? Rebecca stared at the message, her suspicions crystallizing into certainty. She stood up and walked to the elevator, pressing the button for the executive floor. Her heart pounded as she approached Daniel's office. His door was slightly open. She could see him through the glass walls, sitting at his desk and typing on his phone. The blue light from his screen illuminated his face in the darkened office. Rebecca watched as he typed something, paused, then deleted it, and typed again. 30 seconds later, her phone buzzed. Sorry, sent that message before I finished my thought. What I meant was... She looked up at Daniel, He was still typing on his phone, completely absorbed. She didn't need to read the rest of the message. She already knew what it would say because she was watching him write it. Rebecca's hands shook as she pushed open his office door. Daniel looked up, startled. For just a moment before he could compose his features into their usual professional mask, she saw genuine fear in his eyes. "Mike," she said quietly. The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. Daniel slowly set down his phone and stood up, his face a mixture of guilt and resignation. "Rebecca, I can explain. Can you?" Her voice came out stronger than she felt. "Can you explain why my boss has been pretending to be someone else to talk to me? Why you've been lying to me for weeks?" "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," Daniel said, his voice losing its usual cold confidence. "I never meant to deceive you." "But you did," Rebecca said, feeling tears threaten. "Every conversation, every shared moment, it was all a lie." No, Daniel stepped forward, then stopped himself. "The conversations were real. My feelings were real. Only my name was fake." Rebecca backed toward the door. "I need to think. I need to process this. I can't be here right now. Please let me explain everything," Daniel pleaded, and in that moment she could hear Mike's voice in his words. "I created that profile after a terrible breakup. I just wanted to be a normal person for once, to connect with someone who didn't know about my money or my company. I never expected to meet you. You had every opportunity to tell me the truth," Rebecca said, her hand on the door handle. "When did you figure out who I was?" Daniel's silence was answer enough. "You knew from the beginning," Rebecca whispered. "You knew exactly who I was, and you still kept lying." She turned and walked out, leaving Daniel standing alone in his office, surrounded by all the success and power that suddenly felt completely meaningless. The morning after, Becca called in sick the next morning for the first time in 2 years. She sat in her apartment, staring at her phone where dozens of messages from Mike Wilson waited, unread. Her mind kept replaying the moment of discovery, the look on Daniel's face when she said his fake name, the way his professional mask had crumbled. Her roommate Olivia knocked softly on her bedroom door. "Becca, I made coffee. Want to talk about it?" Rebecca had told her everything last night between tears and anger. Olivia, ever the practical one, had listened without judgment and then asked the questions Rebecca wasn't ready to face. "I don't even know how to feel," Rebecca said, accepting the mug of coffee. "I'm angry, obviously. But I'm also heartbroken because the person I was falling for doesn't actually exist." "Doesn't he, though?" Olivia sat on the edge of the bed. "I mean, those conversations you had were real. His thoughts, his feelings about art and life, those came from an actual person. Daniel Montgomery is real, even if Mike Wilson isn't." "But he lied to me every single day," Rebecca protested. "While I was pouring my heart out to Mike about how difficult my boss was, Daniel knew exactly what I was saying. He knew everything about me while I knew nothing about him. That's not a relationship. That's manipulation."
Out.
Olivia was quiet for a moment. What if it wasn't manipulation? What if he was just scared? Rebecca wanted to argue, but something stopped her. She thought about the messages Mike had sent. The vulnerability he had shown when talking about feeling trapped by expectations. Had that been Daniel trying to tell her the truth without actually telling her? The unexpected visit around noon, Rebecca's building intercom buzzed. She ignored it, assuming it was a delivery for one of her neighbors. It buzzed again, more insistently. "Ms. Hayes." The doorman's voice crackled through the speaker. "There's a Daniel Montgomery here to see you. He says it's important." Rebecca's heart jumped into her throat. "Tell him I'm not available." There was a pause. "Then he says he'll wait as long as necessary." "He's very insistent, ma'am." Olivia gave Rebecca a look. "You're going to have to face him eventually. Might as well be on your terms, in your space." 10 minutes later, Rebecca opened her apartment door to find Daniel Montgomery looking nothing like the polished CEO she knew. He wore jeans and a simple sweater, his hair slightly messy, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept. He looked human in a way she had never seen at the office. "Thank you for seeing me," he said quietly. "I haven't decided if I'm actually going to listen," Rebecca replied. Keeping the door partially closed, "Give me one good reason why I shouldn't slam this door in your face, 'cause I owe you the complete truth," Daniel said. No more lies, no more hiding. Just the real story, and then you can decide what you want to do with it. Rebecca studied his face, seeing exhaustion and genuine remorse. Against her better judgment, she stepped aside and let him in. The full confession, Daniel sat on the edge of Rebecca's couch. Looking uncomfortable in the modest apartment, such a contrast to what she imagined his penthouse must be like, Olivia had tactfully disappeared into her bedroom. But Rebecca knew she was listening. 6 months ago, I ended a relationship with someone named Vanessa Cole, Daniel began, his hands clasped tightly together. We had dated for a year. She was beautiful, charming, and I thought she understood the pressures of my life. Then I found out she had been selling stories about me to tabloids, sharing private photos. Using our relationship for her modeling career, Rebecca remained standing, arms crossed, but she was listening. When I confronted her, she laughed. Daniel continued, his voice tight. She said I was naive to think anyone would want me for myself. That Daniel Montgomery, the person, was boring and rigid, but Daniel Montgomery, the billionaire, was worth the trouble. She said I should be grateful someone was willing to put up with how cold and distant I am. That's horrible, Rebecca said before she could stop herself. Made me question everything, Daniel said. Was she right? Had I become so focused on building my company that I'd lost the ability to connect with people? I looked at my life and realized I had employees, business partners, and acquaintances, but no real friends. No one who knew me beyond the CEO persona. He looked up at Rebecca, and she could see the pain in his eyes. So I created Mike Wilson. Just a regular guy with normal problems and interests. I joined Art Connect because I genuinely love photography. It's the one hobby I've kept from before the company consumed my life. I wasn't looking for romance or deception. I just wanted to have real conversations with real people who weren't impressed or intimidated by my bank account. The moment of recognition, when did you realize it was me? Rebecca asked, moving to sit in the chair across from him. The third conversation, Daniel admitted. You mentioned working on a campaign for a hotel chain, and you described a frustrating meeting with your boss. The timeline matched perfectly with our Peterson account meeting. I looked at your Art Connect profile more carefully and recognized your art style from the designs you'd submitted. And you didn't say anything, Rebecca said, feeling the anger resurface. You kept talking to me, learning everything about me, while I had no idea. I know how it looks, Daniel said quickly. But Rebecca, by that point, I was already falling for you. The real you, not the professional designer who was nervous in meetings. I got to know the woman who talks to her plants, who cries at street musicians, who sees beauty in subway stations in rainy mornings. And I was terrified. Terrified of what? Of losing you, Daniel said simply. If I told you the truth, you'd either think I was a creep who had been manipulating you, or you'd change how you talk to me. I'd lose the one genuine connection I'd made in years. So I convinced myself I could maintain both relationships, Mike and Daniel, and eventually find the right way to tell you. Rebecca shook her head. That's not how trust works, Daniel. You don't get to decide when someone is ready for the truth. You stole my choice? You're absolutely right, Daniel said. And I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here to apologize and to tell you that everything I felt, everything I shared with you as Mike, was real. The only lie was my name. My feelings were true. The difficult questions. Rebecca stood and walked to her window, looking out at the city. All those times I complained about you, about how cold and demanding you were listening. Did you laugh at me? Did you think it was funny? No, Daniel said firmly. It broke my heart because I realized how I'd been treating you. You're one of the most talented designers I've ever worked with. But I'd been so focused on maintaining professional distance that I'd made you feel inadequate. That's on me, not you. Why were you so different at work? Rebecca turned to face him. The Mike I knew was warm and encouraging and funny. The Daniel at the office was like ice. Which one is the real you? Daniel stood up, running his hand through his hair in that familiar gesture. Honestly, I don't know anymore. I became CEO at 28. Everyone told me I needed to project authority, maintain distance from employees, never show weakness. I built this armor, and over time, it became who I was. But with you as Mike, I could let that armor down. I could be the person I used to be before success turned me into someone I barely recognize. That's not fair to either of us, Rebecca said. I can't have a relationship with two different people. I need to know who you actually are. Then let me show you, Daniel said, taking a step closer. No more Mike Wilson. No more profiles or fake names. Just me, Daniel, trying to figure out who I am beyond my company and my money. I don't know if I can be the warm, open person I was in our messages all the time, but I want to try. I want to be that person, especially with you. The painful admission, Rebecca felt tears starting to form. You hurt me, Daniel. You made me fall in love with someone who didn't exist. But Mike did exist, Daniel said softly. He still exists. He's the part of me that I buried under business suits and board meetings. You brought him back to life. Rebecca, I love you. I loved you as Mike, and I love you as Daniel. I love how you see the world, how passionate you are about art, how you make me want to be a better person. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for a chance to earn it. Rebecca asked, her voice breaking. How do I trust you again? How do I know there aren't more secrets? Daniel pulled out his phone and handed it to her. No password. Check whatever you want. My messages, my emails, my social media accounts. I deleted the Mike Wilson profile last night. I don't want any barriers between us anymore. Rebecca looked at the phone in her hand, then at Daniel's face. He looked terrified and hopeful at the same time. I don't want to be the kind of person who checks their partner's phone, she said. But I also don't know how to trust you blindly after this. So don't trust me blindly, Daniel said. Question everything. Call me out when something doesn't feel right. I'll be completely transparent from now on. I'll prove to you that I'm worth a second chance. The decision point Olivia emerged from her bedroom, having clearly heard everything. Rebecca, can I talk to you alone for a minute? They went into Rebecca's bedroom, leaving Daniel in the living room. What do you think I should do? Rebecca asked. That's not my call, Olivia said. But I will say this. I've watched you these past few weeks, and you've been happier than I've seen you in years. Yes, he lied about his identity, and that's serious. But his feelings seem genuine. The question is whether you can forgive him and whether you believe he'll be honest going forward. What if he breaks my heart again? That's the risk with any relationship, Olivia pointed out. The question is whether what you felt with him was worth fighting for.
Oh.
Rebecca thought about all the late-night conversations, the way Mike Daniel had made her feel seen and valued. She thought about the vulnerability he had shown today, how he had stripped away every defense to stand in front of her as his authentic self. I need time, Rebecca said finally. She returned to the living room where Daniel stood by the window, looking out at the same view she had been contemplating earlier. I can't just forgive you immediately, Rebecca said, but I'm willing to try. On one condition, anything, Daniel said. We start completely over. Not as Mike and Rebecca, not as Daniel and his employee, as two people getting to know each other for real. That means I need to transfer to a different department or report to someone else at work. I can't have a relationship with my boss. It's too complicated. Already done, Daniel said. I spoke with HR this morning. You'll be transferred to our creative innovation department with a promotion and a raise. You'll report directly to the department head, not to me. And if you want to leave the company entirely, I'll provide the best references possible. Rebecca was surprised. You did that before coming here? Before knowing if I'd even talk to you? Because it was the right thing to do, Daniel said. Regardless of what happens between us personally, you deserve to work in an environment where you feel valued and free from any awkwardness. Small steps forward, Becca took a deep breath. Okay, we can try this, but slowly. I need to get to know the real Daniel Montgomery, not the CEO version or the Mike Wilson version. Just you. A genuine smile broke across Daniel's face, transforming him completely. How about we start with coffee? There's a place in the West Village that has the best cappuccino in the city. We could walk there, talk, no pressure, just coffee? Rebecca asked. Just coffee, Daniel confirmed. And maybe, if it goes well, dinner sometime next week. We'll take it as slow as you need." As they walked toward the door, Rebecca stopped him. "Daniel, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Promise me you'll always be honest, even when the truth is hard. Even when you think I won't like what you have to say. Complete honesty from now on." Daniel took her hand gently, the first physical contact they'd had since everything had been revealed. "I promise. No more secrets. No more half-truths. Just us figuring this out together." They left the apartment together, stepping out into the bright afternoon sun. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, and Rebecca knew there would be difficult conversations ahead. Trust would have to be rebuilt piece by piece. But as they walked side by side through the streets of Brooklyn, she felt something she hadn't expected to feel: hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could build something real from the ashes of deception. Maybe the man she had fallen in love with through a screen could become the man she loved in real life. It wouldn't be easy, but nothing worth having ever was. A new beginning. 3 weeks had passed since that afternoon in Rebecca's apartment. True to his word, Daniel had arranged her transfer to the Creative Innovation Department, where she now worked on cutting-edge projects that actually challenged her skills. Her new supervisor, Robert Chen, was encouraging and supportive. Everything she had wished for in a boss. Daniel had also kept his promise about taking things slowly. They had gone on 7 dates, each one deliberately simple and pressure-free. Coffee shops, art galleries, walks through Central Park. A cooking class where they had both failed miserably at making pasta. Each time, Rebecca learned something new about the real Daniel Montgomery. She learned that he was scared of heights. Despite owning a penthouse on the 45th floor, that he had a younger sister in California he talked to every Sunday, that he volunteered at a youth center in the Bronx, teaching kids about technology and entrepreneurship, that he had terrible taste in movies but excellent taste in music, that he was trying, genuinely trying, to be more open and vulnerable, but there were still moments when she could see him retreat behind his walls, when something would trigger his protective instincts and he would become distant. Those moments hurt, reminding her that rebuilding trust was not a straight path. The company, the Montgomery Digital Annual Gala, was the social event of the season, bringing together tech industry leaders, investors, and media from around the world. Rebecca had attended the previous year as a nameless employee in the crowd, but this year was different. This year, she was Daniel's date. "You don't have to do this," Daniel had said when he invited her. "I know being in the public eye is uncomfortable, and given everything that happened between us, I don't want you to feel pressured. I want to go," Rebecca had replied, though her stomach had been in knots. "But Daniel, people are going to ask questions. The media will speculate. Are you ready for that?" "I don't care what they say," Daniel had said firmly. "I'm not hiding you or our relationship. If anything, I want the world to know that I'm with someone who makes me want to be better." Standing in her apartment in an elegant navy dress that Olivia had helped her choose, Rebecca felt the nerves intensifying. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel.
"Downstairs."
"Take your time. You're going to be beautiful." Rebecca took a deep breath and headed down. A sleek black car waited at the curb, and when Daniel stepped out to open her door, she nearly gasped. He wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo, but it was the way he looked at her that took her breath, a wail like she was the only person in the world. "You're stunning," he said softly, offering his arm. "You clean up pretty well yourself," Rebecca replied, grateful for the humor to cut through her nervousness. Facing the spotlight, Gala was held at a historic mansion overlooking the Hudson River. As they pulled up, camera flashes exploded around them. Daniel squeezed her hand. "Stay close to me," he murmured. "And remember, you belong here just as much as anyone else." They walked the red carpet together, Daniel's hand firmly on her back, protective but not possessive. Reporters shouted questions, but Daniel smiled politely and kept moving until they were inside the venue. The ballroom was breathtaking, with crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows revealing the sunset over the water. Hundreds of people mingled, all dressed in their finest, all part of a world that still felt foreign to Rebecca. Mr. Montgomery, a silver-haired man, approached with an extended hand. "Wonderful event, as always." And who is this lovely companion? Rebecca Hayes, Daniel said with unmistakable pride. She's the lead designer on our innovation team. Her work on the Harris campaign was brilliant. The man's eyebrows rose with genuine interest, and he engaged Rebecca in conversation about her design philosophy. Daniel stood beside her, occasionally adding comments but clearly happy to let her shine. It was so different from the cold CEO who had once intimidated her in conference rooms. Throughout the evening, Daniel introduced her to investors, competitors, and industry leaders. But what surprised Rebecca most was how he spoke about her, always emphasizing her talent and accomplishments. Never just as his date, but as a valuable professional in her own right. The confrontation midway through the evening. As Rebecca was getting champagne from the bar, a striking woman in a red dress approached. Rebecca recognized her immediately from Google searches she had done weeks ago. Vanessa Cole, Daniel's ex-girlfriend. "So you're the new one," Vanessa said with a cold smile. "Rebecca, right?" "Yes," Rebecca replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "And you're Vanessa?" "I am. I wanted to warn you, woman to woman. Daniel Montgomery is very good at making you feel special, like you're different from all the others. But trust me, honey, you're just the latest project. Once he's fixed you up and shown you off enough, he'll get bored and move on." Rebecca felt anger rising but kept her composure. "I appreciate your concern, but my relationship with Daniel is none of your business." "I'm trying to help you," Vanessa insisted. "He's using you just like he used me. The only difference is you're useful to him professionally. I was just arm candy. But either way, we're both just accessories to his image." "That's where you're wrong," Rebecca said firmly. "Daniel never used you. You used him for publicity and money, and when he figured it out, you couldn't handle being held accountable. Don't project your behavior onto him." Vanessa's face flushed with anger. "You think you know him? He's probably keeping secrets from you right now. That's what he does, builds walls and hides behind his money. He kept secrets because people like you made him afraid to trust," Rebecca said. "But he's learning to be open, to be vulnerable. That takes courage, something you apparently know nothing about." Before Vanessa could respond, Daniel appeared at Rebecca's side. "Is there a problem here?" "No problem," Rebecca said, taking his hand. Vanessa was just leaving. Vanessa glared at them both before stalking away. Daniel looked at Rebecca with concern. "What did she say to you?" "Nothing I couldn't handle," Rebecca replied. "But Daniel, she was right about one thing. You do build walls. And sometimes, even now, I can feel you doing it." The honest conversation later that night, after the gala ended, Daniel and Rebecca sat on a bench overlooking the river. Her heels kicked off beside them, his bow tie hanging loose around his neck. "Talk to me," Rebecca said. "Really talk to me. What's going on in your head?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "Tonight, watching you handle yourself with investors and industry leaders, seeing how talented and confident you are, I had this moment of panic. What if you realize you don't need me? What if you outgrow whatever this is between us?" "Daniel, that's the wall talking," Rebecca said gently. "That's your fear trying to make you retreat before you can get hurt. But relationships don't work that way. My success doesn't diminish us. It adds to what we can build together." "I know that logically," Daniel said. "But emotionally, it's hard. Everyone in my life has wanted something from me, my money, my connections, my influence. The idea that you might genuinely care about me, just me, feels too good to be true. And when things feel too good to be true, I start waiting for the other shoe to drop." Rebecca took his face in her hands, making him look at her. "I need you to hear this. I don't care about your money. I don't care about your company or your reputation or your connections. I care about the man who sends me pictures of street art he finds on his morning runs. The man who laughs at terrible jokes and admits when he's scared. The man who is trying so hard to tear down walls that took years to build. That's who I love." Daniel's eyes widened. "You love me?" Rebecca realized what she had said and felt her heart race. "Yes, I love you. Both versions, Mike and Daniel, because they're both you. I love the man you are and the man you're becoming." Breaking through, Daniel pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "I love you too. I've loved you since you sent me that photo of the subway musician. I've loved you through every conversation, every date, every moment of doubt. I just didn't know how to say it without sounding like I was trying to manipulate you. That's the difference between manipulation and honesty, Rebecca said. Manipulation hides truth for personal gain. Honesty shares truth, even when it's scary. I need you to be honest with me always, even about the hard stuff. I'm scared I'll disappoint you, Daniel admitted. I'm scared that I'm too damaged from Vanessa and is set in my ways to be the partner you deserve. Everyone brings damage to relationships, Rebecca said. The question is whether you're willing to work through it. Are you willing to keep being vulnerable with me, even when it's uncomfortable? Yes, Daniel said without hesitation. You're worth fighting for. We're worth fighting for. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the lights reflect on the dark water. Finally, Daniel spoke again. I've been seeing a therapist, he said quietly. Since the night you found out the truth, I wanted to understand why I felt the need to create Mike Wilson, why I have such a hard time being vulnerable. I should have done it years ago, but better late than never, right? Rebecca squeezed his hand. I'm proud of you. That takes real strength. My therapist said something interesting, Daniel continued. She said that Mike Wilson wasn't a lie. He was the version of me that felt safe to express. And Daniel Montgomery, the CEO, wasn't fake either. He's the version of me that learned to survive in a cutthroat business world. The challenge now is integrating both parts, being the best of both versions. I can help with that, Rebecca said. But only if you let me in completely. No more walls, no more hiding when things get scary. We face everything together. The promise. Daniel stood up and helped Rebecca to her feet. They walked back toward the car, her hand in his, the city lights creating a romantic backdrop to their night. I want to take you somewhere, Daniel said. Will you trust me? Always, Rebecca replied, and she meant it. They drove through the city until they reached a building Rebecca didn't recognize. Daniel used a key card to access a private elevator, which took them up to what appeared to be a rooftop studio apartment. What is this place? Rebecca asked, as he turned on soft lights, revealing an open space filled with photography equipment, prints on the walls, and a cozy seating area. This is where Mike Wilson lived, Daniel said. I've had this space for 5 years, long before I created the online profile. It's where I come when I need to escape being Daniel Montgomery, CEO. It's where I do my photography, where I think, where I remember who I wanted to be before success complicated everything. Rebecca walked around, looking at the photographs on the walls. They were beautiful, candid shots of the city, its people, moments of unexpected beauty in ordinary places. They reminded her of her own art, the way she tried to capture emotion in everyday scenes. I've never brought anyone here, Daniel said. Not Vanessa, not business associates, nobody. This space has been my sanctuary, my secret. But I don't want secrets from you anymore. I want you to know every part of me, even the parts I usually hide. Rebecca turned to face him, tears in her eyes. Thank you for sharing this with me. I know how much it means. Daniel walked to her and took both her hands. I'm all in, Rebecca. I know I've made mistakes, and I know rebuilding trust takes time. But I promise you, from this moment forward, complete honesty. I'll tell you when I'm scared, when I want to hide, when my walls start going up. I'll fight against every instinct that tells me to protect myself instead of opening up to you. Because you're worth it, and we're worth it. I'm all in too, Rebecca said. And I promise to be patient with you as you learn to be vulnerable. I promise to call you out when you retreat into CEO mode. I promise to love both the strong, successful Daniel and the sensitive, creative Daniel. All of you. They kissed then, and it felt like a new beginning. Not the artificial start of their online connection, as Mike and Rebecca, not the complicated reveal of their true identities. This was the real beginning to imperfect people, choosing to be honest, to be vulnerable, and to build something genuine together. 6 months later, Rebecca stood in a gallery in Chelsea, surrounded by her artwork displayed on pristine white walls. The opening of her first solo exhibition had drawn an impressive crowd. Art critics, collectors, friends, and colleagues from Montgomery Digital, but the person she was most excited to see was Daniel, who had just arrived with a bouquet of sunflowers. Her favorite. You did it, he said, kissing her cheek. Your own show? I'm so proud of you. Couldn't have done it without your encouragement, Rebecca said. Well, Mike's encouragement, technically. He was the first person who made me believe my art mattered. Mike had good taste, Daniel said with a smile. They had reached a place where they could joke about their unusual beginning.